Hello, I'm Admiral Jedi. Welcome to the Victoria 3 segment of my England to America historical paradox interactive historical playthrough mega series, where I was playing as the precursors of America and I'm now playing as America. If you've watched my previous videos, you know that I went all the way through Europa Universalis. Started Crusader Kings as England, all the way through Europa Universalis, transitioned to America after the Revolutionary War, and we're going to continue on in Victoria 3 and go all the way to Hearts of Iron 4. Onwards! This is a historical playthrough, and so I will get out of the way what that means. If you haven't watched any of my videos before, basically what that means is I'm going to play this game as historically accurately as I possibly can, and that includes things like geopolitical boundaries, social movements, military conflicts, etc., etc. Normally I give 3 disclaimers at the start of any given video, but you're only going to get 2 this time. The first disclaimer that I always give is this is not a tutorial. If you are watching these videos to learn how to play this game, don't. I'm not a terrible player, but I'm certainly not one of the most skilled players out there. Disclaimer number 2 is invalid, and usually I make disclaimer number 2 because I'm playing as a European or Asian country and say, I'm an American, so I really am too stupid to know about cultural sensitivities about the country that I'm playing for, but guess what? I'm playing as America. So that disclaimer goes out the window. Disclaimer number 3 is going to be extremely relevant, especially to this particular series and this particular video, which is I am playing through history. And a lot of terrible, awful things happen in history: war, conflict, the marginalization of women, the mistreatment of ethnicities and minorities, and, of course, slavery. So, videos 1 and 2 of the Victoria 3 segments are going to deal quite a bit with slavery. I do not condone slavery. I will never condone slavery. However, I will be playing as historically accurately as possible. And so that means real talk, real actions, real decisions around slavery will be, unfortunately, made. And so, with those disclaimers out of the way, let's get to the historical gameplay. So, overall, this first video is really going to be about the lead-up to the Civil War. We're going to fight the Civil War in the second video, I think. And so in video number 1, we're going to do some setup, some continued setup of the new nation. Newish, we're not so new anymore, right? And we're going to continue on with westward migration. So we see that a lot here in the continued colonization of indigenous lands. Again, something that I'm not endorsing. Don't think that it was cool in any way. But it did happen, and so you'll see these boundaries kind of, tick down, tick down, tick down over time as more and more Native Americans were forced off of their land, and including to what's known as the Indian Territory here. And so we're going to see that event come up, and we'll make, again, the regrettably historical choice of pushing the Indians out of their land and into what was officially known as, back then, Indian Territory, which is now modern-day Oklahoma. So, we are going to get ready for that. In addition to that, because I don't want the Civil War to totally cream me, I'm going to focus on a lot of technological superiority and advancement in the north for when the southern planters rebel against us. And we're going to delay that as long as we possibly can. Now, interestingly enough, that is super historically accurate in that slavery was sort of actively ignored by both governmental parties. We should have the Democrats and the Whigs. That's historically accurate. And they had agreements amongst themselves. Let's not talk about this. Let's not pass laws about this. Let's just try and do other stuff. And political maneuverings were done to keep certain people, primarily the Democratic Party in this point, in power and filled with people who sort of wouldn't rock the boat, if you will. So we are going to simulate that by trying to postpone the Civil War and not upset anybody as long as we possibly can. They even did such things such as, and we're going to talk about Texas here in a minute, that when Texas was admitted to the Union, that they also wanted to make a deal to admit Oregon into the Union, Texas as a slave state, Oregon as, or maybe it was Maine, I can't think. Is Maine incorporated? Yes, it is. Yeah, I think it was Texas and Oregon, and what they would do is they would balance it. And in fact, the Missouri Compromise was in place and should be in place for that reason. Where do we go to see our country modifiers? Who are we? We are the United States of America. Okay, so we should have the Missouri Compromise in here somewhere. There's a lot of modifiers. Where do we got it? I know it's in here. Come on, come on, come on. Can't see it, can't see it, can't see it. If it scrolled by, somebody shout out. Where's it at? Here it is, from the Missouri Compromise. That should be, I don't want to search for it for too much longer, but basically the Missouri Compromise is a mechanic in this, which gives the Southern planters extra strength, among other things. When I find it, I'll bring it back up. I don't want to scroll forever and keep you waiting. But anyway, one of the primary deals with the Missouri Compromise is they drew a line and said, no slave states above this line, and slavery okay below that line. And it was this constantly trying to basically delay what turned out to be the inevitable. And we're going to see that that is going to be the theme of this whole video, is delaying the inevitable until the Civil War springs upon us and ends this video. Let's take a look at journal entries and decisions real quick. We are going to try and push for Manifest Destiny to open up all these claims in the West. Very first thing we need for that is nationalism. So that is exactly the very first technology that we are going to research, which will be nationalism, to get that started. And this was the concept of Westward Ho, or the Manifest Destiny. Again, that's can be kind of a controversial term, actually. But it was the belief at the time that it was America's destiny to occupy from sea to shining sea, so to speak. And so that pushed everybody continually westward. Technological progress and a need for more land pushed everybody westward, where they ran into people who didn't want to give up their land, understandably, like the American Indians, like Mexico, like, who's this? Hudson Bay, Britain, right? And so this video will be the march westward. And what we're going to begin with right away is what's going on in Texas. So let's let the clock kind of run here and check out their diplomacy. What you got for me? So Texas declared themselves an independent republic. They were originally the northern side of Mexico, and no Spanish colonists were willing to move in here and protect Mexico's northern border from Comanche and Indian raids. And so they asked English or American settlers to come on here, call them Tejanos. Okay, and they did that, but they were, Tejanos, the American Texans, were forced to convert to Catholicism, no longer have slaves, and do all these kinds of things that they just simply did not want to do. And so pushed a little bit too hard on that, they eventually rebelled and declared themselves an independent nation. And so that's what we see here, is the independent, they should be a republic. Let's see if they truly are. Yes, a Republic of Texas, and Mexico under General Santa Anna tried to bring them back into the fold. And now I think we have a scenario where Mexico typically loses this battle. Not always. Kind of sucks when they don't lose it. Looks like they're going to lose it. And what you get, typically, is a historically accurate capture of the general, Santa Anna. Okay, let's go ahead and pause now. I think this happened. Are we still at war? Or are they still at war? It's looking like not. Okay, there it is. That Santa Anna was truly captured. This historically did happen, and it ended the war. Once the Texan Independent War was ended and they became an independent republic, they immediately applied to be annexed by the United States. However, this created, again, a major controversy in slavery, because all the southern states were like, heck yeah, we want to, like, they should be annexed. And the northern states were like, we already don't like slavery. We want to get rid of slavery. The southern states are preventing us from getting rid of, they were accusing them of that. Probably true. And so we don't want to tip the scales in favor of slavery. So believe it or not, their petition for annexation was denied until like 1942 or 1945. I don't want to let that go for too long. So what we're going to do is look at the requirement for that decision. I think it's a journal entry, actually. Yeah, here we go. And basically, we have to have relations with Texas greater than or equal to 20. So I'm going to go ahead and get that started, and we'll do their annexation sooner than historically happened. But that's because I don't need Mexico to like go back to war with them or do something like that. And because it historically did happen, we're going to do it a little bit early. Okay, we talked about terrible things happening in history. This is certainly one of them. Before I go through this, we'll get this minimized down here a little bit. Typically, I like to begin every single video with what my source materials are, and I did forget to do that, but we're going to do that right now. And so I'm going to say, in addition to standard kind of Wikipedia Googling that I do for source material, I am currently relying on a new source material, which is A Patriot's History of the United States by Larry Schweikart and Michael Allen. I'm going to go ahead and get that put up for you. There's a link in the YouTube comments if you'd like to see that. And so moving on from the source material, we have, I think it's in, well, if you come from Boston, it's pronounced Worcester. But anyway, Worcester v. Georgia, which was a Supreme Court case where Georgia tried to pass a law that prevented Indians from being in the state. It criminalized basically being Indians in the state. And this was taken all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court declared it unconstitutional, that states were not allowed to regulate who could be in them within the context of the entire United States. However, that Supreme Court decision was disobeyed unconstitutionally and illegally, and President Andrew Jackson says here, defied the ruling of the Supreme Court and ordered the removal of Cherokee people to the Indian Territory. And this is what begins what is known as the Trail of Tears, where the indigenous people were moved forcibly out of land that they owned and into what was officially called Indian Territory, and we see that here. So this is a tragic and terrible event that happened, and with no joy whatsoever, we're going to make those historical choices. And one of the reasons why I do that, and I've made my disclaimer already, is if we don't talk about what was done, then we'll never learn to do it right, to do it better. And so that's the last I'll say that. So a very horrible choice. Having reached friendly relations with Texas, we get the Texan statehood event. And so I mentioned this earlier, they weren't admitted to the Union until around I think it was 1845, actually. So we're going to welcome them now because I don't think we're going to have a chance to do that later. And this basically led to an issue with America and Mexico. It's like, okay, this was they were originally what Mexico considered to be rebels. And America is like, hey, yeah, we'll welcome you. Now, of course, interestingly enough, I mean, it was a lot of American people that Mexico originally welcomed in to keep them safe from Indian raids, and then told them, you've got to convert to Catholicism, you know, all that stuff I said earlier. And they're like, no thanks, declared independence, and then America's like, well, we'll take you. And so basically what they did is, it was their people anyway, if you kind of think about it. They basically took Mexico's land that Texas had successfully declared independence and captured for themselves. So this led almost immediately to the Mexican-American War. 1 year later, again, this is probably about 9 years too soon, but like everything in Paradox games, it always happens too soon. I'm just going to kind of roll with it. Now, what happened was America wanted Mexico to declare war on them, and they did it. They offered Mexico an insulting deal to purchase California. Like, we'll give you $1 for it. And they were like, that's an outrage, and then attacked them. But even though they attacked them, America had military battalions ready on the front, and a navy ready on the Pacific side. So they were kind of wanting the war. Accordingly, we're going to go ahead and declare the war ourselves, but I'm not going to do it quite yet, because what I think I can do is when Manifest Destiny comes in, I can get a claim on all these properties, which will make going to war against Mexico for them a lot easier, frankly. So we're going to wait for that to happen, and I think that's going to be... yeah, when our technology finishes in 8 months. So let's fast forward to that. So nationalism unlocked. Good. And we're going to go ahead and choose another technology here shortly, but I'll just do that off camera. Instead, we are going to trigger Manifest Destiny. Okay. So this gives us a bunch of claims. Yeah, here we go. Do. Yay. And upsets Mexico. And I think a fair amount of other nations as well, which is kind of lame. But where's my diplomacy at? There we go. Should have infamy here somewhere. Where do you see that? E. There we go. Okay, so pretty high infamy at this point, 24. Probably from the Manifest Destiny incident that just happened. Now, Britain I have a trade agreement with, because I want to keep them on my good side. So let's see. We're at cordial still, that's good. My problem is, I cannot do a diplomatic play on Mexico because I have too high of infamy. Curious why I cannot do return state, because I do have claims on these things. So, well, here's a return state. Yeah. I'm not gonna do it, because I want to make sure that things go well. Okay. Yeah, alright. So that's good. This is good to know. I like this new info screen that came with the new patch and everything like that. So I'm gonna let the clock tick down for a little while. War with Mexico shouldn't start until around 1847. And I don't think I'm going to be able to capture all the territories that I want with just a single war. So we're going to let it tick down for a little bit and then go to war with Mexico for the first time. So I kicked off a war against Mexico with a lot of these returns. Return Mexican Colorado. There's no more returns left. I could conquer, but I don't want to do that. So let's see if we've got enough. What are we at? 50. See if we've got enough to make them all primary. Because what I don't want to do is have them go, okay, fine, you can have Colorado, and then I've got to wage war against them. So let's see, 11, 14, 17, 24, 27. Should be enough. I mean, I think you get a bunch of infamy doing this, unfortunately. But my little predictor said, you know, we should be okay. It looks like Great Britain's not going to jump in. Hudson Bay Company may jump in. But they're looking okay. I don't think I need to sway them or anything like that. So let's go ahead and see how the opening moves go. So this would be the representation of the Mexican-American War, which was the first one. I think it's the first and only. I haven't done that far research yet. What's this? If you want peace, our forces explore hardline foreign policy. Yeah, well, that is really exactly how it happened. So let's go ahead and... Okay, well, American relations deteriorates with Mexico. We're at war, so I would imagine that would happen. So far, so good. Nobody's being swayed. I probably don't have enough diplomatic power to do a sway. And nobody's on the fence. So... Oh, I can. Well, I can't. Anyway, it doesn't look like they're going to be a cooperative. Alright, well that's cool. So, Great Britain's cooperative. They're probably just going to stay out of it. So, let's go ahead and just basically get mobilized. And, might as well do everybody. Yes, sir. So, we'll get everybody mobilized and sent on to the front. Let's see who we've got to send. Got a lot of folks. I'm preparing a larger force in New England because I'm getting ready for the Civil War. I want New England to be stronger than Dixie. So we'll go ahead and deploy not only Dixie but also New England to the front. Where are you at? And that should be enough, really, to get things going here. And it looks like they're getting down. They want to go to war, as opposed to just capitulate and give me my demands. Which is accurate. So we certainly went to war against Mexico. And let's just, let's push it through for a minute. And just see what happens. And if it, once it breaks out, we'll, okay, Great Britain declares neutrality, so basically it's done. It's a done deal at this point. We have superior troops. Mexico actually thought they were going to be able, and they're quoted as saying that they'll be in Washington, D.C. in 6 weeks. They were going to just stomp on in and take it. And that did not happen. So anyway, to war, to war. And I'll go ahead and fight this war and bring it back in when it's done. After a significant amount of front splitting, which was really awful, I set a strategic objective to get to California so I could, make sure that with my war goal, they would go down below 0. And then they divided me right in the middle. And to get back to the front, my dudes started basically sailing literally around the tip bottom of South America, which was super exciting and super not historically accurate. So that was kind of lame. Anyway, we're getting ready to propose a peace deal. There we go. Here we go. So we can basically get everything like we proposed for. And so you see that, boom, we cut this whole swath here across. So outside of the indigenous territories, which are still being pushed in upon, we're looking pretty good. Now that should give us... Okay, we don't get these until we finish acquiring the rest of this territory. So that's going to take a while. Now, this event, the Mexican Session, I'm not really sure what they're seeding. Like we just took it. Okay, I'll have to see what that is. I do think I've played this once before, but I've forgotten in the meantime. So we're going to keep going, and also I think the Frontier Wars pretty much call for the same thing. And then that should open up, you know, Oregon, Idaho, all that sort of thing. So at this point, we're going to keep going, clean up the economy. Got a lot of work to do to clean up the economy, and get prepped for the Civil War. We're going to continue to try and hold off political choices on slavery. Things are looking okay. Nobody's upset, super upset, so that's good. And there you go. The Mexican-American War is done. With the Mexican-American War completed, the borders again of the United States of America stretched, as we see, from sea to shining sea, right? And this led to continual westward migration. Now, the Rocky Mountains and the Sierra Mountains really made huge barriers to travel. So a lot of people, when they traveled to the West Coast, they would basically take a boat to Panama, okay, here, cross overland, and then come up the Pacific coast to get to California. But people were always trying to find a way to avoid that, to head westward. And so one of the things that was done, that we're going to do right now with quinine having passed, technology-wise, we're able to get our decision to do a map of the western frontier. And so this is just kind of a fun little event that goes on here. I'm not really sure if any of these guys were historically the ones to do this, but we'll go ahead, and I don't think that it really matters. So we'll go ahead and just say, you go ahead and do this. And then what they'll do is, you see this little low peril amount right there, that you'll have these little mini games where it'll give you these scenarios like, you came across a bear, what do you do? Or whatever. So I'm not going to show any of that stuff, but we're going to hopefully get the Western Frontier mapped, and then with the Western Frontier mapped, I believe we get some option to annex some of these remaining states here. So let's come back when that happens, and in the meantime, we'll play the game. Now, the last time I played this event, it seems like it took a lot longer. This one just happened pretty quickly, so that's cool. We're done mapping the Western Frontier. We need this for the Oregon border dispute. Okay, at least one of these. Oh, I see now. I thought we had to have all these. Alright, but no. So we've got to do either all this stuff or own all these things. Alright, because we're not going to own all these. Because this Oregon border dispute gives you ownership of Washington, Idaho, and Oregon. So all we need now is America owns all of Montana, which we're working on. I'm surprised we can't... I'm surprised we're not pushing on this here. We're not. Okay. Well, I mean, we are trying to colonize Montana, and it's, you know, going. Let's just watch it. Its little blip when it goes. Okay, boop. Yeah. So it's. We're not gonna watch that together. It's gonna take a while. I am surprised to see this little area that we're not really pushing on this at all, and not sure what to do with that. So let's just see what happens when the Montana colonization is complete. We're a little bit late for this, but it did happen. In reality, it happened in around 1846 in what was known as the Oregon Treaty. And so this, what was known as the Oregon Territory, here we see as the Columbia District, was basically split by agreement between Great Britain and the United States, drawing this line here. And that is indeed what we're going to do right now, where we inherit Idaho, Washington, and Oregon. So you could maybe watch it happen as we press that. Boop, there it is, there it goes. And so really what we see is the continental United States formed entirely. I'm still converting states to states in the time that they did. I'm doing that off video, just, you know, do a Google lookup to basically say, when did this state become a state? So the only two remaining that we have is Russia, which we need to do something with, or excuse me, Alaska, which we need to do something with Russia on that. There needs to be some conditions, and Hawaii. So those are not going to happen. Neither of those are going to happen in this video. They happen quite a bit later. And so we're going to start getting this wrapped up by basically, and again, I'm cheating a little bit. I'm doing a lot of my own work to strengthen the North, because I want to make sure that when the Civil War breaks out at the end of this video, and during the entire next video, that the North and the Union can win. So I'm building up my military here, so I've got, 18 out of 30, whereas on the Dixie, we have 6 and 3. So just have a much stronger barracks, much stronger navy. I don't think that's historically accurate, but I'm really not going to emulate the various battles and conditions that occurred during the Civil War all that much. We're going to talk about the lead up to it for the following segment of this video, and then we're going to talk about what happened during the Civil War in the next one. So we're getting there. Let's get wrapped up. A couple more events. We just had the Mexican cession occur. We have wrested control of the American Southwest. Now, we, had already done it. I guess it was really just the concept of Mexico saying, yeah, you know what, we're going to not consider this our homeland anymore. So really, it's like in EU terms, it's like saying we cored it, right? Like this is our core territory now. So we also expect this set of territories to be coming through kind of any time now. Might as well let this one kind of, let's see. Yeah, it's probably going to take too long. Let's fast forward. So this should be about it. I think we've got just this one last piece in Nebraska to finish acquiring. And then, hurry up. There we go. Okay, colonization and the frontier wars come to a completion. And again, not happy about it, just did happen. Last vestiges of Native American rule are gone, have been stamped out. And so all of these lands are then considered the homelands of the United States of America. So, like I said, not anything anyone should be proud of. Historically accurate, historically tragic. But there we go. The United States of America is continentally fully formed at this point. And business continues, business grows, commerce, population increases, but the nation turns inward to focus, finally, on this primary issue that they've been putting off forever and can put off no longer. Now, in a way, we've been behaving historically accurately. I may have alluded to this earlier, by doing nothing about slavery. That is precisely what the United States did. They took great measures, shocking great measures, to avoid doing something about slavery. They framed it, in various ways. They tried to establish parties that would not rock the boat. Trades were made. The Missouri Compromise, I think I tried to find that earlier, and couldn't find it, and for whatever reason it was staring me right in the face. Here, again, this concept that the country was divided. There were agreed trade-offs that, if a slave state opened up in the South as they expanded westward, I think I've said this already, They'd be balanced by, but eventually what happened was it just couldn't be ignored anymore, nor should it have been. And people finally had to face the reality that slavery was just either wrong or right. That there were no nuances, that it wasn't about states' rights or anything like that. And a few things came up to really quicken the pace on this. I'm not going to be able to do it historically, unfortunately. And that was the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which kind of unwound the Missouri Compromise and ended up and basically declared what was called popular sovereignty, which is this fallacious concept that the people don't need to obey the Constitution if they personally vote within their state to not do so. And that in itself was really kind of ridiculous, because it just basically meant that any state could simply ignore federal law, the federal Constitution, if they voted to do so. And then you have to just kind of ask yourself the logical question, why do we even have a federal government then? If all states can basically just choose to ignore it. So in addition to the Kansas-Nebraska Act, there was the Dred Scott Supreme Court decision, which I could not do any justice to. I'm not a legal scholar, but it was a former slave who lived in northern states where freedom, where slavery was, not there. I don't know if it was illegal, but it wasn't. They were free states, right? And so somebody basically recaptured Dred Scott by declaring that he used to be a slave, he never had the rights of a citizen to petition the northern states for his rights of freedom, and so therefore his petition was... Anyway, I'm sure a law or history scholar will tear me up on that one. But what really happened that we are going to try to figure out how to do is that slavery just couldn't be ignored anymore. We're going to spend the rest of this video trying to get to slavery banned and provoking the Civil War. So we have nobody that can even move to do this right now. So we're going to see what we can do about that. And that would be, do we have an agitator that we could invite? Okay. Mustafa Rashid Pasha from Turkey. Okay. Interesting. Don't see anybody yet. Oh, here we go. Okay. Now this is on yeoman farmers belonging to the Whig Party. Now that's not historically accurate. The Whigs turned out to be the Federalists who kind of recognized that their party was doomed. And they continued to exhibit this characteristics of being, quote, Northerners with Southern leanings, which is exactly what the South tried to find. It's exactly what everybody tried to find. Somebody from the North who could be voted for, but would not stir up a ruckus with slavery. It's not that they would take a stance against it or for it. They would just sort of stay quiet. So I don't know. I know we've got Abraham Lincoln, who was really critical to this effort. Now, he's part of petite bourgeoisie. Oddly enough, okay, he's an abolitionist. Okay, so if we can get him into power, we can start the movement. Okay, we'll join Democratic Party, Whig Party, Intelligentsia? Really? Okay. So, I'm just gonna keep playing like normal. I don't know when this is going to happen, but we're probably going to be able to get this wrapped up quickly because I'm just going to be doing kind of normal gameplay until we can get folks in power who can try to ban slavery. The moment we try to do that, the Civil War is going to start, guaranteed. And so that's going to be fine. I'm going to try and push it as close to 1860 as I possibly can. Let's see how close we can get. Now, we have an election coming up here in a few days, which looks like the Whig Party is going to win. Okay. So they did, which could be good. Now, leaving the Democratic Party in power would be good from our legitimacy standpoint, but, oh no, they are in power. Wait a minute. Yeah, okay, Whigs and Democrats. Well, you know, in a way, this is kind of accidentally historically accurate. So that's fine. Now we could bring in... I thought we saw an agitator with yeoman farmers. Right? Yeah. Okay. So we're a little bit early. Abraham Lincoln wasn't elected until 1860. And really, he became a lightning rod. He was really one of the first people to, instead of making a half-hearted technical argument about slavery and its constitutionality and everything like that, he was one of the, and he and his supporters were some of the first few people to basically make an argument that it was just wrong, that it was straight morally wrong. And I'm telling you, there are some crazy... I mean, some of the justifications coming out from the pro-slavery people were saying that, like, capitalism was the true form of slavery because, you know, plantation-style slavery, people didn't have to choose for themselves. Like, their lifestyle was provided, quote-unquote, for them. And capitalists had to work but still make their own choices. So that's the true style of slavery. I mean, it's really crazy what people came up with to justify continuing a morally wrong behavior. Or even people who were abolitionists and owned slaves themselves. So anyway, we're going to keep pushing this. I do realize we could bring that agitator in. What I'm going to do is continue. I'm already bolstering intelligentsia and petite bourgeoisie. I don't think they have the clout to even come close to... Yeah, I mean, we could move them in for 20% and have a completely failed government if we want. That's not going to work. So we're just going to keep them pushing them up. And I'm going to, again, get the clock as close as I can to that. So let's keep going. Okay, I think we've gotten as close as we're going to get. October 14th, 1858. We have a banned slavery movement, which means we can do it, I think. Yep. Okay. We'll add an agitator to that, just because. Let's do that. A non-historical agitator. Pierre Aurel Nantil. Alright, charismatic, firebrand, I like it. So, boom, we'll add him. And let's just see if he joins the movement. I'm sure that he will. So let's kind of wait there. There we go. And so let's go ahead and ban slavery and start our civil war. Here we go. So this should really upset people. And, yep, there they are at -12. And we should expect to see a counter movement to preserve, what is it? I think it's debt slavery. And, there we go. And now we should expect to see a revolution occur right away. There we go. Alright, so who resigned from government? The Southern Planters. Now, it's true that South Carolina was the very first to secede from the Union. So it's interesting that they would resign from government. Secession hasn't occurred yet, but we are on the way. In fact, I think because... Let's go ahead and take a look at what the government... Illegitimate government, 0. Yeah, there's no legitimate government combinations whatsoever. So, let's just keep going. And our inefficient agriculture. Alright, whatever. So let's keep going and see. We'll just go ahead and let the clock tick down here a little bit. I'll tell you what, we'll punch up the time. And the revolution should take place once this gets to red, because we have the critical mass. So once it goes all the way across, it's an excellent place to live. I don't know what that is, but whatever. And express their concerns. Let's go ahead and just keep on ignoring them. So we should have revolution occur. Oh, I thought it was going to pump up by 326. So that we'll go ahead and just fast forward that. In fact, heck, we may get close to the 1860 time frame after all. Just a couple more things as we get this wrapped up, because we're going to stop this video when the Civil War breaks out. First of all, it's interesting. You can kind of see the outline there. Let's see if I can get rid of that. Hey. Alright, there you go. You can see the outline there in red of which nations will break away. And I don't know how historically accurate that is. Probably is pretty close. And the other thing is, it's interesting that we have an illegitimate government. The United States were completely divided over this issue. And in fact, it's interesting to know, Kansas had 2 governments. They had 2 Congresses, they had 2 capitals, and there was basically the pro-slavery and the abolition side of Kansas. So I found that was kind of interesting. So we are getting closer to the moment here. We've got 85% revolution, and maybe this final piece will push us over the edge. Let's see. There it is. Okay. So, the American Civil War has begun. We're going to fight that next video, and I just wanted to thank you for watching this first segment of Victoria 3, England to America, Paradox Historical Playthrough Interactive Mega Series as a U.S., and we are going to fight the Civil War next time. Thank you for watching.